That voice in your head telling you you are not good enough is not the truth. It is a story you have learned to believe. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. This is the core promise of Stoicism. Today you will receive a practical blueprint to transform that doubt into self-mastery. We will walk through a step-by-step journey from internal conflict to lasting inner peace. You will learn how ancient Stoic exercises can disarm your inner critic for good. You will discover what happens when you stop fighting your thoughts and start observing them. And you will find out how to build an unshakable inner fortress that no amount of self-doubt can penetrate. What is one area of your life where your own mind feels like your biggest obstacle? Stoics called these automatic thoughts impressions. An impression is not a fact. It is your mind's first, raw interpretation of an event, a feeling, or even another person's words. Think of it as a data packet delivered to your consciousness, complete with a pre-written label. This label often screams you are failing or you are not enough. The critical Stoic insight is that the thought itself is not the problem. The real damage happens in the next moment when you give that impression your full assent. You sign the document without reading it. You accept the label as absolute truth. This is what the teacher Epictetus meant when he wrote that we are disturbed not by things, but by the views which we take of them. The outside event is neutral until you judge it. Your inner critic is not a monster to be slain. It is a faulty judgment machine that you have been fueling with your agreement. Imagine you receive some critical feedback on a project. The initial impression might hit you like a wave. They think my work is terrible. I am incompetent. A Stoic would catch that wave without being swept away. They would pause and examine the impression before granting it power. Is the feedback itself the problem, or is it my automatic view that this proves my inadequacy? The feedback is just words. My judgment that those words define my worth is the optional and painful addition. So take one recurring self-critical thought you have. That voice that says you are not smart enough or that you will surely fail. For just a moment, do not fight it, do not believe it, simply see it for what it is. A passing impression, a piece of data with a harsh label. Your power lies not in stopping the delivery, but in choosing whether to sign your name to it. The single most powerful tool for quieting doubt is understanding what is truly yours to command. This is the heart of the Stoic dichotomy of control. Some things are within our power while others are not. Within our power are our own judgments, our impulses, our desires, and our aversions. Everything else, from our reputation to our wealth to the actions of other people, is not within our direct control. Your inner critic gains its strength by blurring this fundamental line. It agonizes over what other people think, a classic example of something outside your command. It worries about future outcomes that are ultimately not yours to dictate. This misplaced focus is the very fuel for your anxiety. Epictetus opens his Enchiridion with this exact idea, stating that the chief task in life is to identify what is within our power and what is not. When you do this, he says, you will never be frustrated or disappointed because you will only concern yourself with what is truly yours. Think about a time you felt a sharp pang of self-doubt after a presentation. The doubt likely did not come from the work you put in, which was within your control. It came from your interpretation of a colleague's quiet reaction or your fear that the audience was not impressed. These are external events and the opinions of others. They are not yours to command. The Stoic move is to redirect your energy from what you cannot control to what you can. You cannot control the final outcome of a job interview, but you can control your preparation and your conduct during the meeting. You cannot force someone to like you, but you can control whether you act with kindness and integrity. The goal is not to become indifferent to the world, but to invest your emotional energy wisely in the one place where you have absolute authority, your own inner citadel. Take a moment and bring to mind 3 things that are currently feeding your own self-doubt. Maybe it is a project at work, a difficult conversation you need to have, or a personal goal you fear you will not reach. Now, on a piece of paper or just in your mind, create 2 columns. In the first, list everything about that situation that is within your control. Your effort, your attitude, your willingness to learn, your actions right now. In the second column, list everything that is not. The final result, other people's decisions, the market conditions, plain luck. Seeing this division on the page is a profound act of disarmament. It pulls the critic's teeth by showing you exactly where your power begins, and more importantly, where it ends. This is not a recipe for passivity, but for focused and effective action. It frees you from the exhausting burden of trying to manage the unmanageable, and returns your attention to the one thing you can always improve, yourself. What if you could watch your critical thoughts pass by like clouds in the sky without getting caught in the storm? This is not a metaphor for avoidance, but for a profound shift in perspective the Stoics called cognitive distancing. It is the practice of separating your conscious self from the endless stream of your own thinking. Marcus Aurelius dedicated much of his private writings to this very exercise. He would remind himself to step back and observe the ceaseless flow of impressions, to see them not as commands he must obey, but as mere suggestions he could evaluate. He wrote that our minds have the power to step back from the rush of thoughts, and that a healthy intelligence can observe itself. This is the essence of mental objectivity. You are not your thoughts, you are the awareness that hears them. When the inner critic whispers you are going to fail, that statement is not a fact etched in stone. It is a piece of data, one single interpretation among many possible ones, appearing in your field of consciousness. The moment you mistake that data for a directive is the moment you lose your footing. A simple but powerful way to practice this is to add a few words before any harsh self-judgment. Instead of silently accepting I am so incompetent, you mentally frame it as I'm having the thought that I am so incompetent. This tiny linguistic shift creates instant space. It installs a pause between the impulse and your reaction. You are no longer drowning in the thought. You are standing on the riverbank watching it float by. The emotional charge begins to dissipate because you have stopped identifying with the content. The next time a wave of self-doubt crashes over you, try this. Do not engage in an argument with the critic. Do not try to forcefully replace the negative thought with a positive one. Simply notice it, label it. There is the thought that I am not prepared enough. Or there is the story that everyone will see I am a fraud. Observe it with detached curiosity, as if it were a natural phenomenon. A cloud shaped like a monster that is already changing form as it drifts across the sky. This act of observation is not passive. It is an active reclaiming of your inner territory. You are exercising the one power that is truly and always yours, the power to choose your relationship with your own mind. Think of your mind as a courtroom and your initial doubt as an unverified claim. The discipline of assent is your gavel. It is the conscious act of pausing before you accept that first impression as the final verdict. Between the moment a critical thought arises and the moment you believe it, there exists a sliver of space. This tiny gap is the very seat of your freedom. The Stoic teacher Epictetus put it plainly when he said, Do not be carried away by the vividness of the impression, but say, "Wait for me a little, O impression. Allow me to see who you are and what you are about. Let me test you." This is the practice of withholding your immediate agreement. It is not about suppressing the thought, but about interrogating it before you sign your name to its story. Imagine you send an email to a colleague and notice a significant typo moments later. The initial impression crashes in, vivid and loud. "I am so careless and unprofessional." They will think I am incompetent. The old, automatic response is to give full assent, to let that story become your reality, sending a wave of anxiety and self-recrimination through your entire system. But with the discipline of assent, you catch the thought at the door. You hold up a hand and say, "Wait." You examine the claim. Is it true that a single typo makes me entirely unprofessional? Is it a fact that my colleague will define my entire competence based on this one error? The answers are almost certainly no. The pause allows you to separate the event, the typo, from the catastrophic narrative you were about to endorse. In that space, you can choose a different, more accurate and compassionate judgment. I made a mistake. I can send a brief, polite correction and be more careful next time. The event is the same, but your relationship to it is transformed. Your power was never in preventing the impression, but in mastering your response to it. So today, I challenge you to conduct this simple but profound experiment. The next time an automatic negative judgment arises, whether it is about your abilities, your appearance, or your worth, consciously insert that pause. Do not let the gavel fall on the first accusation. Question the evidence. Ask if the story is truly valid. In that moment of deliberate hesitation, you are not just quieting a critic, you are reclaiming your role as the sole judge of your own character. Your greatest doubts and failures are not obstacles, but essential parts of your training manual. This is the radical invitation of Amor Fati, a love of one's fate. It is the practice of embracing everything that happens to you, not with resignation, but with active acceptance. Every setback, every flaw your inner critic points to, is not evidence against you. It is the raw material for building your character. The Stoic emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." Your perceived failures are not exceptions to your path. They are the very fuel for your growth. When you learn to love your fate, you pull the most powerful weapon away from your inner critic. The critic says this failure proves you are not good enough. Amor Fati replies, "This failure is here to teach me something vital." It transforms the critic's primary fuel into a constructive force. Think of a project you worked on that was ultimately rejected. The automatic, critical impression is to see this as a pure loss, a confirmation of your inadequacy. But the practice of loving your fate asks you to shift your gaze. Can you love this rejection for the clarity it provided? Can you embrace it for the resilience it is forcing you to develop? That rejected project is not a stain on your record. It is a chapter in your training manual on perseverance. It is the specific weight you needed to lift to become stronger. This is not about pretending the setback does not hurt. It is about changing your relationship to the pain, seeing it as purposeful. So bring to mind a recent setback, a mistake, or a personal flaw that your inner critic has been fixated on. Instead of fighting against its existence, try on the mindset of Amor Fati for just a moment. Ask yourself, what is one positive lesson this situation revealed? What strength did it demand that I never knew I had? Perhaps a professional failure taught you the value of thorough preparation. Maybe a personal flaw of impatience is showing you exactly where you need to practice the virtue of calm. By finding just one constructive thread in the fabric of your difficulty, you begin to reweave the narrative. You are no longer a victim of circumstance, but a student of your own life. learning from every single page, especially the most challenging ones. Let's take a step back, way back, and see your life from the perspective of the cosmos. The Stoics had a powerful mental exercise for this exact purpose, one that Marcus Aurelius returned to again and again in his private writings. He would remind himself to frequently contemplate the whole of time and the vastness of the universe. He wrote that many of the anxieties that clutch at us are trivial when measured against this grand scale. This is the view from above, a visualization designed not to minimize your experience, but to provide a profound and calming context for it. Your inner critic thrives in a small, dark room. This exercise throws open the windows to reveal the entire sky. Here is how you can practice it right now. Close your eyes if you feel comfortable, and bring to mind a specific worry or self-doubt that feels heavy today. Now, in your mind's eye, picture yourself in the room you are in. Then, pull your perspective upward, as if you are floating up through the ceiling, seeing the building you are in, then your entire neighborhood from above. Keep going, see your whole city or town, a tiny patch of light and structure. Rise higher until you see your country, then the entire continent, a beautiful, curved marble against the deep black of space. From here, the borders and conflicts that consume so much energy are invisible. Now, see the planet itself, a fragile, blue and white sphere hanging in the immense silence. All of human history has happened on this one small world. Every triumph, every heartbreak, every empire that rose and fell, all of it occurred right here. And your life, with all its doubts and aspirations, is one brief, precious moment in that vast story. The criticism that felt so monumental just minutes ago now seems exactly as it is, a small, passing cloud in an endless sky. This is not about making your life seem insignificant. It is about realizing that your struggles are part of the human struggle, that your story is a single thread in a magnificent cosmic tapestry. The next time your inner critic tries to convince you that a mistake is a catastrophe, try this exercise. Spend just 30 seconds pulling back your perspective. Watch as the weight of that self-judgment shrinks to its true size, not a defining tragedy, but a manageable event in the grand narrative of your life. This cosmic context is the ultimate antidote to the critic's tunnel vision, a reminder that you are both infinitely small and profoundly connected to everything. Let's explore how vividly imagining your worst fears can actually make you fearless. This might sound completely backwards, yet it is the core of a powerful Stoic exercise called Premeditation Malorum, the Premeditation of Evils. The Stoics were not pessimists, they were supreme realists. They understood that our deepest anxieties, the very fuel for our inner critic, are almost always about future events that may never happen. We fear the stinging criticism, the public failure, the harsh judgment from others, and so the Stoic deliberately turns to face these specters, not to be terrified by them, but to be liberated from their power. Seneca, the great Stoic philosopher and statesman, actively practiced this. He would set aside time to contemplate the loss of his status, his wealth, even his family. He did this not to dwell in misery, but to achieve a profound and unshakable tranquility. He wrote that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. By mentally rehearsing the very things we dread, we accomplish two vital things. First, we rob the event of its element of surprise. The emotional shock is drastically reduced because you have already visited that place in your mind. Second, and more importantly, you prove to yourself that you can endure it. You see yourself not breaking but responding with composure. Your inner critic loves to whisper terrifying what-if scenarios. What if I fail spectacularly? What if they all think I am a fraud? Premeditatio Malorum takes that ammunition and dismantles it piece by piece. Take a moment to think about a specific fear feeding your self-doubt right now. Perhaps you have a difficult conversation looming or a creative project you are terrified to share. Now, close your eyes and mentally walk through the worst-case version of that event. Do not just skim the surface, immerse yourself in the details. Imagine giving that presentation and seeing confused faces in the audience. Picture the silence after you finish, or the one person who offers a harsh, critical comment. Now here is the crucial Stoic turn. Do not let the scene end with your humiliation and retreat. Continue the mental movie. See yourself taking a calm breath. Watch yourself acknowledging the feedback without defensiveness. Visualize yourself saying, "Thank you for that perspective. I will consider it carefully." See yourself leaving the room with your dignity intact, having faced the very thing you feared and discovering that it did not destroy you. The failure or criticism, should it actually happen, is now just a real-world version of a scenario you have already mastered in your mind. You have walked through the fire in your imagination and found yourself still standing on the other side. This practice does not attract bad outcomes, it prepares your character for any outcome. By willingly embracing the possibility of difficulty, you drain your fears of their power and build a resilience that no amount of doubt can penetrate. What if being a good person was the only true measure of success? This question strikes at the very foundation of the Stoic worldview. The ancient Stoics argued that there is only one thing we can truly call good, and it has nothing to do with money, fame, or even physical health. The sole good is virtue, the excellence of your own character. Your inner critic, however, is almost always obsessed with the opposite. It ties your worth to your latest achievement, your social standing, or the approval of others. It tells you that you are only as good as your last success. The Stoics offer a radical alternative. They propose that everything outside your character, everything you do not control, is classified as an indifferent. This does not mean those things do not matter, but that they lack the power to truly make your life good or bad. A promotion is preferred, but it is not good. A failure is dispreferred, but it is not evil. The only real good or evil lies in how you choose to act, in the quality of your will. Epictetus put it with his typical blunt force when he wrote, "What is the good?" The good is a certain kind of moral purpose. Your worth is not determined by what happens to you, but by how you respond from the core of your character. Imagine two people. The first is a celebrated executive admired by all, who has climbed the ladder of success through cunning and by stepping on others. The second is a humble shopkeeper who has faced bankruptcy, yet treats every customer and competitor with unwavering fairness and kindness. From a Stoic perspective, who is the truly successful one? The executive may possess all the external trappings of success, but their character is flawed. The shopkeeper, while facing external failure, possesses the only thing that counts, a virtuous soul. The executive is poor where it matters most, while the shopkeeper is truly rich. This reframes every single one of your perceived failures. That project that did not meet its goal, that conversation that went poorly, these outcomes are merely indifference. The real measure of your success in those moments was this: did you act with wisdom? Did you demonstrate courage in the face of difficulty? Were you just in your dealings with others? Did you exercise temperance and self-control over your emotions? If you can answer yes, then you succeeded, regardless of the external result. Your inner critic loses its power because you have changed the entire definition of the game. So, as you reflect on your day-to-day, I invite you to try a different kind of review. Do not ask yourself what you accomplished. Instead, ask yourself a much more profound question. When faced with a challenge, was I courageous? When interacting with others, was I fair and kind? When my emotions surged, did I act with discipline? Your answers to these questions reveal your true success, a success that no outside force can ever take from you. there is a subtle art to striving without suffering. You can pour your entire being into a goal, yet remain inwardly undisturbed by its final outcome. This is the secret of the Stoic reserve clause, a mental safeguard against the bitter sting of disappointment and self-recrimination. Think of it as a silent addendum you attach to every one of your intentions. I will do my absolute best, fate permitting. This is not a statement of doubt, but a declaration of profound wisdom. It is the practice of detaching your self-worth from results you cannot fully command. Seneca captured the spirit of this when he advised that we should undertake all endeavors with a kind of reservation, mentally adding, if nothing interferes. He was not promoting half-hearted effort, but a wholehearted engagement that is simultaneously at peace with any possible ending. The goal is to direct your energy entirely toward the action itself, the part you control, while releasing your grip on the final outcome, which you do not. This breaks the direct chain your inner critic loves to forge between failure and personal inadequacy. Consider a job interview. You can and should prepare meticulously. You research the company, you practice your answers, you plan your route to arrive early. This is your domain, your arena of control. But the moment you walk into that room, the reserve clause must quietly activate in your mind. You perform your best, you speak with clarity and confidence, all while internally accepting that the hiring decision itself, the other candidates, the company's shifting needs, the hiring manager's personal biases, is not yours to command. If you do not get the offer, the critic's ready-made narrative is that you were not good enough. But with the reserve clause, your internal response is entirely different. The outcome was not in my hands. I know I acted with excellence in the part that was mine. This is not a consolation prize, it is the entire point. The quality of your effort is your success. The result is merely an external event. This mental shift transforms your relationship with ambition itself. You are no longer a gambler betting your entire sense of self on a single roll of the dice. You become an artisan whose satisfaction comes from the integrity of the work itself, regardless of where the finished piece ultimately ends up. So bring to mind a goal you are actively pursuing right now. It could be a fitness target, a creative project, or a difficult conversation you need to initiate. Now, consciously apply the reserve clause to it. State your intention clearly. I will work toward this with all my energy and focus, and then add the quiet, powerful caveat that sets you free. I will do so with the understanding that the final outcome is not mine alone to decide. Feel the sense of relief that comes from this. The pressure to control the uncontrollable dissipates, leaving only the clean, focused energy for your own noble effort. Your pen can be mightier than your inner critic's sword. Let's learn how to wield it. The practice of Stoic journaling transforms the abstract principles we have discussed into a concrete, daily discipline. It is a structured way to catch your automatic thoughts on paper and cross-examine them before they can take root in your mind. Think of your journal not as a diary of events, but as a courtroom transcript where you methodically dismantle the case your inner critic is trying to build. The most famous example of this practice is the personal notebook of Marcus Aurelius himself. His book Meditations was never intended for publication. It was his private journal, filled with reminders, arguments, and logical examinations of his own fears and frustrations. He was literally practicing Stoicism on the page, interrogating his impressions to find a wiser, more virtuous path. You can do the very same thing. The process is simple but profound. Begin by writing down the exact self-critical thought that is bothering you. Do not edit it. Let the critic speak its piece onto the page. Then, with the calm demeanor of a judge, you begin the cross-examination. Ask it a series of Stoic questions. First, is this thought about something within my control or outside of it? If it is about another person's opinion or a final outcome, you have already identified a fundamental error in the critic's argument. It is focusing on the ungovernable. Second, is this a judgment or a fact? Your thought might say, I completely failed that presentation. The fact is that you spoke for a designated time and received some feedback. The label of complete failure is a harsh judgment, not an objective truth. Third, what is a more accurate and constructive way to view this event? This is where you rewrite the narrative from a place of virtue. Here is a brief template you can use tonight. At the top of a page, write the critical impression. For example, my idea was rejected, which proves I am not creative enough. Below it, create 2 columns. In the first column, challenge the impression. Is my creativity truly defined by one rejection? Are there other factors like budget or timing that influence the decision? Is this outcome entirely within my control? In the second column, reframe the impression. I acted with courage by sharing my idea. The rejection is a dispreferred indifferent that does not diminish my worth. I can use this feedback to refine my next concept. My value lies in the effort and courage I showed, not in the yes or no I received. The simple act of writing this down forces your brain out of its reactive, emotional loop and into a state of rational, deliberate processing. So, your assignment is this. Before you sleep tonight, take just 5 minutes with a notebook. Identify one nagging doubt that has been circling your mind. Write it down in its raw form and then, with your pen as your weapon, calmly and systematically dismantle its faulty logic. You are not just writing words, you are building the foundation of your inner fortress, one truthful sentence at a time. Remembering that you will die is not morbid, it is a tool for cutting through the noise of doubt. This ancient practice, known as Memento Mori, was a cornerstone of Stoic thought. It is not an invitation to despair, but a profound reminder to live with urgency and clarity. Your inner critic wastes precious energy on anxieties that are, in the grand scheme of your one precious life, utterly trivial. It whispers about potential embarrassment, about a minor mistake at work, about what someone you barely know might think of you. Contemplating your mortality instantly vaporizes these concerns. It forces you to ask a simple, piercing question. Does this truly matter? Seneca wrote that we are not given a short life, but we make it short by wasting our time. He urged us to place before our minds the whole of our time, and see how much of it has been taken by pointless worry, by groundless fear, by the pursuit of hollow approval. When you hold the finite nature of your own existence clearly in view, the allure of perfecting a presentation to please everyone vanishes. The sting of a casual, critical comment loses its power. You'll begin to see these things for what they are, distractions from the real work of living well and acting virtuously in the time you have. Imagine you are about to speak up in a meeting and a wave of self-doubt hits. The old fear screams, what if I sound foolish? What if they disagree? Now, layer the Memento Mori lens over that same moment. With the awareness that your time is limited, the question transforms. Is preserving a fleeting feeling of comfort more important than contributing a potentially valuable idea? Is avoiding a moment of possible awkwardness worth the regret of silence? The critic's argument collapses under the weight of this perspective. Marcus Aurelius framed it as a nightly practice. You could leave life right now, he reminded himself. Let that determine what you do and say and think. This is not a threat but a liberation. It is the ultimate prioritization filter, so I want you to try a brief thought experiment. Sit quietly for a moment and bring your inner critic to the forefront. Listen to its most common complaints about your life, your work, your social self. Now, imagine you have just received the sobering news that you have 1 month left to live. Seriously consider it. How does the volume on that critical voice change? Do its worries about your perceived inadequacies or social blunders still hold any weight at all? Or do they instantly seem like the background static of a life not being lived fully? The things that truly matter come into sharp, beautiful focus. This practice grounds you in what is real right now and grants you the courage to dismiss the petty fears that your inner critic has been magnifying for far too long. You have access to the wisest mentors in history. Let's learn how to consult them. The Stoics believed that one of the most effective ways to cultivate virtue was through the deliberate study and emulation of exemplary figures, both historical and imagined. They called this ideal the sage, a person of perfect wisdom and unshakable character. While they acknowledged that achieving this ideal was a lifelong pursuit, they used the concept as a North Star, a constant template for how to respond to any situation without being governed by fear or self-doubt. When your inner critic begins its familiar refrain, you can bypass that reactive pattern by asking a simple but profound question. What would Socrates do in this moment? How would Cato face this insult? This is not about escaping your own identity, but about accessing a reservoir of wisdom that already exists within you, waiting to be channeled. Epictetus frequently urged his students to have these exemplars at the ready, to set them before their eyes in times of trouble. He said we should have a specific person in mind so that when a difficult situation arises, we may think, what would Socrates or Zeno have done? This practice instantly elevates your perspective. It pulls you out of the small, fearful self and into the realm of principled action. Imagine you are dealing with a hostile colleague who consistently undermines your ideas in meetings. Your automatic, self-critical impression might be to shrink, to think you must have done something wrong, or to plan a sharp, defensive counterattack. Both of these responses are fueled by doubt and fear. Now pause and consult your inner sage. Picture Marcus Aurelius, who faced constant betrayal and political intrigue, yet maintained his composure and focused only on acting justly. He would not take the hostility personally, seeing it instead as a reflection of the other person's own inner turmoil. He would respond with calm reason, not with reactive emotion. He would listen, assess the critique for any valid points, and address them with clarity, all while refusing to be drawn into a petty conflict. His inner peace would remain entirely intact because it does not depend on the other person's behavior. Your task is to step into that same mental space, so I invite you to choose a historical figure of strong character, someone you genuinely admire. It could be a Stoic like Seneca, a leader like Abraham Lincoln, or anyone whose integrity and composure you respect. Now bring to mind a specific source of self-doubt or anxiety you are currently facing. It might be a difficult conversation, a fear of failure, or a personal mistake you are ruminating on. Close your eyes for a moment and truly envision how your chosen figure would walk into that situation. How would they carry themselves? What would their internal monologue sound like? It would be free of self-recrimination, focused solely on what is right and what is within their control. By mentally rehearsing their virtuous response, you are not pretending to be someone else. You are drawing a map for your own character to follow, showing your inner critic a more excellent way. The Stoics saw every obstacle, every criticism, as fuel for the inner fire of character. Your inner critic presents you with a list of grievances, a catalogue of your failures and flaws, and demands you see them as proof of your inadequacy. Stoicism asks you to see that same list as a training syllabus for your soul. The very thing that appears to block your path is not a detour from your journey, it is the path itself. Marcus Aurelius put this radical idea into words that have echoed for centuries. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Read that again. What stands in the way becomes the way. The obstacle is not merely something to be endured, it is the essential ingredient for your progress. A life without resistance is a life without strength. Imagine a river. Its power is not born in a placid lake, but in the constant, friction-filled push against its banks and the rocks in its bed. Those obstacles are what give the river its direction, its force, its very identity. Your character operates on the same principle. The difficult colleague is not an interruption to your peace, he is your trainer in the virtue of patience. The project that failed is not a stain on your record, it is your personal drill sergeant for the virtue of resilience. The criticism that stings is not a verdict, it is a whetstone to sharpen your wisdom. Consider the Stoic hero Cato the Younger. He lived his entire political life in opposition to the corruption of Julius Caesar, a battle he ultimately lost. From the outside, his story is one of glorious failure, but from a Stoic perspective, Cato's entire life was a masterpiece of using obstacles as fuel. Caesar's rise was not an impediment to Cato's virtue, it was the very condition that allowed it to shine so brightly. It gave him endless opportunities to practice courage, to demonstrate integrity under immense pressure, and to hold fast to his principles when compromise would have been far easier. His greatest obstacle became the way he expressed his deepest values. So bring to mind one current obstacle your inner critic is fixated on. Perhaps it is a financial struggle, a health issue, or a recurring conflict with someone close to you. Now shift the question. Do not ask, "Why is this happening to me?" Instead, ask, "What virtue is this situation inviting me to practice?" Is this financial pressure an opportunity to cultivate resourcefulness and temperance? Is this health challenge a call to practice patience and acceptance? Is this difficult relationship a training ground for compassion and setting clear boundaries? Your obstacle is not a random punishment, it is a custom-made gym for your spirit. Name the specific virtue you can build right there in the heart of the difficulty. In that simple act of reframing, you stop fighting your fate and start working with it. You cease to be a victim of your circumstances and become the architect of your character. To become immune to the fear of failure, sometimes you must practice having less. This is the logic behind a powerful Stoic exercise known as voluntary discomfort. The goal is not to punish yourself, but to train your spirit. By periodically choosing to step away from ease and luxury, you inoculate yourself against the anxiety of losing them. You prove to your deepest self that your worth and your capability are not tied to your possessions, your comforts, or the approving opinions of others. Seneca, one of the wealthiest men in Rome, regularly engaged in this practice. He would set aside a certain number of days each month to live on the cheapest food and wear his roughest clothing. He did this to reassure his soul, as he wrote in his letters, that poverty is not an evil. He was not practicing self-denial out of guilt, but building a psychological immune system. He knew that the man who fears losing his luxurious life is already a slave to it. The person who has practiced living without it is truly free. Think of it like a fire drill. You do not conduct a fire drill because you expect the building to burn down. You do it so that if an emergency ever occurs, your body and mind know exactly what to do and panic does not take over. Voluntary discomfort is a resilience drill for your entire life. The practice can be remarkably simple and profoundly revealing. Start with something small and entirely safe. Perhaps for one day this week, you decide to eat only very simple, plain foods. Notice the impulse to reach for a snack for comfort or distraction, and simply observe it without judgment. Or you might try a digital Sabbath, a 24-hour period where you voluntarily disconnect from all non-essential screens and notifications. Pay close attention to the quiet anxiety that arises, the fear of missing out, the habitual reach for your phone. In that empty space, you will meet the raw, unadorned version of yourself, the one that exists without constant external input. You are not depriving yourself. You are reintroducing yourself to your own sufficiency. This weekend, I challenge you to choose one small comfort to voluntarily go without for a single day. It could be that morning coffee, the background noise of the television, or the constant scroll through social media. As you move through your day without it, observe your internal state with curiosity. What stories does your mind tell you about what you are missing? What feelings of lack or restlessness emerge? And most importantly, witness the moment you realize you are still okay. You are still whole, still capable, still you. That realization is a quiet victory over the fear that you are not enough without your external supports. Your inner critic often thrives on isolation and comparison. Stoicism offers a cure, a sense of profound connection known as Sympatheia. This ancient concept reveals that we are not separate islands of consciousness competing for limited resources. We are all part of a single, breathing organism, a universal community of reason. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself of this truth, writing that we are made for cooperation, like feet, like hands, like eyelids, like the rows of upper and lower teeth. To act against one another is contrary to nature. Your worth is not measured against another person's achievements, because their success is not your failure. In the grand design of a rational cosmos, their victory is part of the whole's health, and therefore it is your victory too. This shifts the entire foundation of social doubt. Instead of seeing a peer's promotion as a threat, you can learn to see it as a benefit. Their gain does not shrink your own potential. It elevates the entire human project to which you both belong. That colleague who just landed the account you wanted, their skill and good fortune are a testament to human capability. You can genuinely feel joy for their contribution because it strengthens the very world you inhabit. Your inner critic wants you to feel separate and small, but Sympatheia reminds you that you are an integral thread in a magnificent, shared tapestry. So bring to mind one person you frequently find yourself measuring your own life against. Notice the familiar pang of envy or the whisper that you are falling behind. Now try on the Stoic perspective, actively reframe their accomplishment. See their success not as a personal loss, but as a net positive for our common humanity. Wish them well sincerely in your mind. This is not about forced positivity, but about recognizing a deeper truth. When you root for others, you are ultimately rooting for the world you live in. And in doing so, you silence the critic that insists life is a solitary, zero-sum game. What if the key to quieting your doubt was not getting what you want, but wanting what you already have? Your inner critic is a machine of perpetual dissatisfaction, constantly comparing your present reality to an idealized future where you finally have more, achieve more, and become more. Stoicism confronts this directly by revealing that dissatisfaction is not a condition forced upon you by your circumstances. It is an active choice of judgment, a story you agree to tell yourself about what you lack. The Stoic finds a profound and lasting abundance not in the endless pursuit of external things, but in a radical appreciation of the present moment. Epictetus framed this with stunning clarity when he taught that happiness and freedom begin with a clear understanding of one principle. Some things are within our control and some things are not. After that, he said, do not demand that things happen as you wish, but wish that they happen as they do, and you will find contentment. This is the art of wanting what you have. It is the practice of aligning your desires so perfectly with reality that the very concept of being deprived loses its meaning. The good you seek is not waiting for you in some distant tomorrow. It is available to you right now in the simple, often overlooked facts of your existence. Let us try a simple exercise together. Wherever you are, pause for a moment and bring your attention to your breath. Feel the air moving in and out of your body. Now consider your senses. You can see the light and shapes around you. You can hear the subtle sounds in your environment. You have the capacity to think, to feel, to remember. These are not small things. They are the foundational gifts of being alive, and they are available to you at this very second, completely free of charge. Your inner critic may be fixated on the promotion you did not get or the social slight you endured. But in this present moment, your body is functioning, your mind is aware, and you have the capacity for peace. I want you to take a mental inventory right now. Identify 3 simple, non-material things you are currently taking for granted. It could be the feeling of a comfortable chair, the memory of a friend's kindness, the simple fact that you made it through yesterday. Do not just list them. For a full minute, sit with the feeling of genuine appreciation for each one. Let that feeling of sufficiency wash over the nagging voice that insists you need more to be happy. In this space of conscious gratitude, the critic has nothing to say, because you have just discovered that everything you truly need to be content is already here. Your mind is a fortress. Every impression is a visitor seeking entry. You are the gatekeeper. This is not a passive role. It requires constant, proactive vigilance, because the impressions you grant passage to do not simply visit and leave. They take up residence, they form alliances, and they become the very fodder your inner critic uses to build its case against you. The Stoics understood this dynamic with absolute clarity. They knew that the battle for tranquility is won or lost at the gates of perception, long before a full-blown attack of self-doubt ever begins. Epictetus issued a direct warning about this, advising us to be careful about the company we keep and the entertainments we consume. He was not being a moralist, he was being a strategist. He knew that a mind constantly fed on sensational news, on social comparison, or on conversations filled with complaint and gossip, is a mind that is actively stocking its own arsenal for future suffering. The initial impression from a stressful news headline or a curated social media post is not a neutral event. It enters your mental fortress with a pre-written label, often screaming that the world is dangerous or that you are not living up to some artificial standard. If you let these impressions in unchecked day after day, you are essentially handing your inner critic a stack of loaded weapons and then wondering why you feel so besieged. Consider your daily media consumption as a form of mental nutrition. You would not knowingly eat food that made you physically sick every day, so why would you consume a steady diet of information that leaves you feeling anxious, inadequate, or angry? This is where a practical audit becomes a powerful act of self-defense. Take a close, honest look at your social media feed. Scroll through it not for content, but for its emotional impact. Which accounts, after you see their posts, leave you feeling a subtle sense of lack? Which news sources leave you with a background hum of dread that has nothing to do with your immediate, real life? These are not harmless distractions. They are systematic training programs for your inner critic, reinforcing narratives of scarcity, fear, and perpetual inadequacy. Your assignment is to identify just one of these sources, one consistent stream of negative impressions. It could be a particular app you mindlessly open, a toxic news channel, or even a recurring conversation with a certain person that always leaves you feeling drained and self-critical. For the next 7 days, make a conscious commitment to drastically reduce your exposure to it. Unfollow the account, mute the news alert, limit the conversation. This is not about hiding from the world, but about reclaiming your mental sovereignty. You are the gatekeeper, and for 1 week, you are choosing to be far more selective about who and what gets an all-access pass to your inner world. Notice the quiet that begins to emerge when that one noisy channel is turned off. That quiet is the sound of your own judgment, finally able to speak for itself. The most damaging criticism often does not come from others. It is the quiet, seething anger we turn inward when we fall short of our own expectations. This self-directed fury is a critical storm that rages long after any external event has passed. The Stoics, particularly Seneca in his powerful work on anger, saw this passion as a temporary form of madness. Anger, he argued, is always based on a faulty judgment, a rash conclusion that we have been wronged in some intolerable way. When you direct that anger at yourself, the logic is just as flawed. You are essentially judging your own mistake or shortcoming as an unforgivable offense, a crime committed by you against yourself. Seneca wrote that no plague has cost the human race more, and that anger is a brief insanity. The rage you feel after a careless error or a perceived failure is not a measure of your high standards. It is a destructive over-rejection, a refusal to grant yourself the basic humanity of being imperfect. This is where patience must step in, not as a passive weakness, but as the active antidote to this internal war. Patience is the virtue of giving yourself the time and space to learn and correct, rather than to punish and condemn. Imagine you are working on an important document and you accidentally delete a crucial section you spent hours on. The initial hot flash of panic is the impression. The immediate critical thought screams, "I am such an idiot. How could I be so stupid?" The old automatic response is to fuel that impression with anger. You might clench your fists, curse under your breath, and spend the next 10 minutes mentally berating your own carelessness, effectively paralyzing any chance of a constructive solution. The Stoic response, guided by patience, catches that angry impulse at the door. It acknowledges the frustration without being consumed by it. It asks the Socratic question, does this anger serve me? Does calling myself names recover the lost work or improve my focus moving forward? The answer is a clear no. Anger only compounds the original error with a second, more damaging one, the erosion of your own inner peace. So you take a slow, deliberate breath, consciously relaxing your shoulders. You accept that the mistake happened, that the feeling of frustration is present, and you gently redirect your energy toward the one thing within your control right now, which is starting the work again, perhaps with a new, more frequent saving strategy. The problem is the same, but your relationship to it and to yourself is entirely transformed. Recall the last time you were truly angry with yourself. Replay that moment in your mind, not to relive the shame, but to observe the mechanics of your own reaction. Now, gently reimagine that same scenario, but this time infuse it with a dose of Stoic patience. See yourself noticing the mistake, feeling the surge of frustration, and then consciously choosing to meet it with understanding rather than fury. Watch as that single choice changes everything that follows, turning a moment of self-attack into an opportunity for quiet, dignified recovery. Let's draw a simple circle that can show you exactly where to focus to build unshakable self-mastery. This visual tool, inspired by the modern thinker Stephen Covey and rooted in the ancient Stoic dichotomy of control, creates a powerful map for your mental energy. Picture two concentric circles. The large outer ring is your circle of concern. This contains everything that worries you or captures your attention, from global events and the economy to what your neighbors think of you and whether you will get that promotion. It is vast, noisy, and almost entirely filled with things you cannot control. Inside it sits a smaller, more potent circle, your circle of influence. This is where your true power lies. It contains everything that is within your direct command, your judgments, your efforts, your choices, and your actions right now. Your inner critic feasts on the chaos of the outer circle, constantly pointing out all the things going wrong that you feel powerless to fix. The path to self-mastery is a deliberate shift of your focus from the large circle of concern to the small, powerful circle of influence. When you pour your energy into the things you can actually change, a remarkable thing happens. Your circle of influence begins to expand, naturally shrinking the territory of your anxieties and, by extension, the voice of your critic. This is the modern, practical application of the Stoic truth that our power lies only over our own minds. To make this real, take a piece of paper and actually draw these two circles. In the large outer circle, write down or mentally place all the things that are currently feeding your self-doubt. Your concern about a future deadline, your worry over a strained relationship, your anxiety about a volatile market. Now look at each item and ask the Stoic question, is this within my direct control? Be ruthlessly honest. The final deadline date might be fixed, but your preparation for it is not. The other person's feelings are their own, but your communication and conduct are yours. Move every single item you possibly can into the inner circle of influence. You will be left with a clear, actionable list of what is truly yours to command. Your final task is to choose just one item from your inner circle, the one that feels most pressing today, and take one small, definitive action on it. If your worry is about a project, your action is to spend 25 focused minutes on the next step. If it is about a relationship, your action is to draft a kind and honest message. This single act, no matter how small, is a declaration of power. It is you telling your inner critic that your energy is no longer for sale to every passing worry, but is reserved for the noble work of building what you can, right where you stand. Stoicism teaches that we must not just control our reactions, but also train our very desires. This is the third and perhaps most profound discipline, the discipline of desire. Most of our self-doubt is simply the echo of a desire that has gone unfulfilled. We wanted that promotion, that perfect relationship, that universal approval, and when reality delivers something else, our inner critic pounces with a story of personal failure. The Stoic solution is not to want less, but to want more wisely. We must learn to desire only what is truly good, which is to act with virtue, and to see everything else as merely preferred or not preferred, but ultimately irrelevant to our inner peace. Epictetus begins his entire manual for life, the Enchiridion, by drawing this exact line. Some things are up to us, he writes, and some things are not. Our desires and aversions, our judgments and impulses, these are up to us. Our reputation, our wealth, our social standing are not. The person who constantly desires what is not up to them is like a sailor trying to command the wind. They will always be at the mercy of the storm, always frustrated, always doubting their own ability to navigate. True power comes from wanting only what the wind of fate can never take from you, your own moral character. Consider the deep desire, I must get this promotion. This is a recipe for self-inflicted torture. The outcome depends on factors outside your command, from office politics to the company's financial health. When you tie your sense of worth to that specific result, you hand your inner critic a loaded weapon. If you do not get it, the critic says, see, you were not good enough. But now, reframe that desire through a Stoic lens. The new, trained desire becomes, I must act with excellence and integrity in my work throughout this process. This desire is entirely within your power. You can control your preparation, your diligence, your fairness to colleagues. Whether the promotion comes or not, you have already succeeded in the only game that truly matters. You have fulfilled your own virtuous desire. The disappointment loses its sting because you were never attached to the external prize, only to the quality of your own effort. So take a moment and bring to mind one strong desire you are holding onto right now. something that, if it does not happen, would trigger a wave of self-doubt. Perhaps it is the desire for a project to be universally praised, or for a specific person to treat you differently. Now, perform the alchemy of the discipline of desire. Reframe it. Shift the object of your want from the external outcome you cannot control to the internal action you can. Change "I need them to approve of me" to "I will act with honesty and kindness regardless of their reaction." Transform "I must not fail" into "I must face this challenge with courage and wisdom." In that simple, deliberate shift, you are not giving up on your goals. You are reclaiming your sovereignty. You are ensuring that no matter what happens in the unpredictable world, your deepest desire, the one for a virtuous character, is always, always within your reach. In the constant noise of modern life, your inner critic shouts loudest. The antidote is deliberate silence. This is not the silence of emptiness, but the fertile quiet where your own reasoned voice can finally be heard. The Stoics did not see solitude as loneliness, but as a chosen retreat into the inner citadel, a sacred space to commune with your higher self and practice the principles we have been exploring. It is in this quiet that you can separate the chaotic noise of impressions from the steady whisper of your own judgment. Seneca wrote entire letters on the importance of withdrawing into oneself, arguing that we must periodically retreat from the crowd to converse with our own soul. He believed that being in a crowd was actually the loneliest state of all because you are divorced from your own company. In solitude, you are not alone. You are with the one person whose character you are tasked to build. This practice is where theory becomes lived experience. It is the laboratory where you test your impressions against the touchstone of virtue, without the interference of outside opinions or the relentless pace of daily demands. To start, you do not need a remote cabin in the woods. You can reclaim this space in the margins of your day. Begin by committing to just 5 minutes of complete silence each morning. Sit in a chair or simply remain in your bed after you wake. Close your eyes and let the world fall away. Do not try to force your mind to be blank. Instead, become the observer we discussed earlier. Watch the thoughts and criticisms arise without engaging them. Listen not to their content, but to the space between them. In that space, you will find the clarity that constant noise obscures. Your assignment is to go beyond those 5 minutes today. I challenge you to spend 10 minutes in uninterrupted silence without a phone, a book, or any distraction. Do not use this time to plan your day or replay old arguments. Simply sit and observe the landscape of your own mind. Notice the initial restlessness, the itch to do something. Then feel the quiet gradually settle in. Watch as the volume of your inner critic naturally lowers when it is no longer being fueled by external stimulation. This is not wasted time. It is the most productive work you can do, the work of building a relationship with a calm, capable person you are beneath the doubt. The past is outside the dichotomy of control. Beating yourself up over it is a choice that serves no one. That mistake you made last year, the harsh words you wish you could take back, the opportunity you let slip through your fingers, these events are stones already thrown. Their trajectory is complete. You cannot call them back. Your inner critic, however, treats these stones as if they are still in your hand, demanding you carry their weight forever. This is a profound misallocation of your energy, a refusal to accept the most basic law of nature, that what is done cannot be undone. The Stoic finds freedom not by rewriting history, but by changing their relationship to it. Marcus Aurelius guided himself with this simple, powerful reminder. Do not be distressed by the past, he wrote. The past is fixed and beyond your power, but the present is yours to manage with virtue. The entire chain of events that led you to this moment is unalterable. Fighting against this reality is like arguing with the weather of a day that has already passed. It is a debate you can never win. Consider someone haunted by a single professional failure from years ago. They gave a disastrous presentation that cost their company a major client. The memory surfaces at night, bringing with it a familiar wave of heat to the face and a chorus of internal accusations. You were unprepared. You embarrassed everyone. You are a fraud. The automatic response is to mentally replay the event, searching for a different outcome that will never come. The Stoic process interrupts this cycle with two deliberate steps. First, extract the lesson. Pause the mental movie at the moment of the mistake and ask, what can this teach me? Perhaps the lesson was the importance of over-preparing for high-stakes meetings or of managing anxiety before speaking. The lesson is the only valuable thing the past holds. Second, and this is crucial, consciously close the book on it. Acknowledge the event. I made a significant error during that presentation. I accept that this happened and that I cannot change it. The lesson about preparation is now mine. The event itself is finished. By doing this, you transform the past from a ghost that haunts you into a teacher that informed you. The energy you are spending on self-flagellation is suddenly available for present-moment action, for applying that very lesson to your work today. What is one past mistake that your inner critic still uses as evidence against you? Bring it to mind clearly. Now, perform this Stoic ritual of acceptance. Acknowledge the stone has been thrown. Identify the single, most important lesson it carried. And then make the conscious choice right now to stop trying to change what is immutable. Place that stone on the ground and walk on. You are not erasing your history. You are finally choosing to stop being its prisoner. All these practices are bricks in the construction of your inner citadel, a fortress of mind that doubt cannot storm. This powerful metaphor, often associated with the private writings of Marcus Aurelius, represents the ultimate goal of your Stoic training. It is not a physical place, but an unassailable state of character, built piece by piece through the very disciplines we have explored. The discipline of assent forms its sturdy gates, where you pause and question every critical impression before letting it enter. The discipline of desire lays the deep foundation, ensuring your deepest wants are aligned only with what is truly good, your own virtue. And the practices of negative visualization, voluntary discomfort, and the view from above raise its high, unshakable walls, giving you perspective and profound resilience. When you operate from within this citadel, your entire experience of life transforms. External events may still happen, and critical thoughts may still arise at the gates, but they no longer dictate your inner state. You feel a profound calm, not because the world has become peaceful, but because you have found peace within the storm. Your decisions become clearer, guided by principle rather than panic or the need for approval. The shouts of your inner critic are heard as distant echoes, unable to breach your walls or shake your core understanding of who you are. This is the essence of self-possession. Think of a recent challenge that would have typically triggered a spiral of self-doubt. Now, envision moving through that same challenge from within your inner citadel. You receive difficult feedback. Instead of the walls crumbling with a belief that you are inadequate, you calmly assess the critique from your ramparts. You separate useful information from mere opinion. You respond with clarity, not defensiveness, because your worth is not on the line. Your worth is secured within by the strength of your character. So take a moment to close your eyes and visualize this personal fortress. See its formidable walls, its quiet inner courtyard, the place where your truest self resides. What does it look like? Is it made of ancient stone, cool and solid? Is it a serene, modern structure of light and clarity? Now, ask yourself this. One virtue is the essential material that strengthens its walls against the next assault. Which one will you choose to fortify today? Will it be the courage to face a difficult truth, the patience to endure a frustration without self-anger, or the wisdom to see a setback as training? Name that single virtue. That act of naming is the sound of another brick being laid, another layer of defense against the noise, building a silence within you that is utterly your own. You do not need to be a sage to benefit from Stoicism. You just need to be a Prokopton, a person on the path. This beautiful and relieving Stoic concept names the individual who is actively progressing in virtue, who is not yet perfect but is undeniably moving forward. The Prokopton is the student of life, the one who stumbles, gets back up, and treats every fall as part of the curriculum. Your inner critic demands a finished masterpiece, but Stoicism asks you to honor the messy, beautiful process of becoming. The goal is not to never feel doubt, but to notice that you recover from it a little faster. It is not to eliminate every critical thought, but to catch yourself before you give it your full assent. This shift from demanding perfection to valuing progress is how you disarm the critic for good. The ancient Stoics were remarkably honest about this. They did not present themselves as finished sages who had transcended all human frailty. Seneca, one of the most renowned Stoic teachers, openly confessed his own ongoing struggles. In his letters, he wrote about his anger, his frustrations, and his shortcomings. He did not say, "I have conquered these things." He wrote, "I am fighting them daily." He saw himself not as a master who had arrived, but as a Prokopton, a fellow traveler on the same road. He was showing us that the work is never done, and that the very act of working is the success. Think of a skill you have learned, like playing an instrument or a sport. You did not expect to be a virtuoso on the first day. You celebrated the first time you played a scale correctly, or when you finally hit the ball. You understood that the mistakes were not failures, they were information. The journey of self-mastery is no different. When you view a moment of self-doubt not as a relapse but as a repetition in your practice, its power over you dissolves. It becomes just another note in the song of your progress. So I want you to take a quiet moment and look back over the last week or even the last day. Identify one single area, however small it may seem, where you have made progress in managing your self-doubt. Maybe you noticed a critical thought and simply labeled it as a story without fighting it. Perhaps you felt the pull of an old anxiety, but you consciously redirected your focus to your circle of influence. Or maybe you just caught yourself being impatient with your own progress, and you offered yourself a moment of understanding instead of criticism. That tiny act, that flicker of awareness, is the definitive mark of the Prokopton. It is not a small thing. It is the entire point. It is the sound of a new brick being laid in your inner citadel, the proof that you are no longer a prisoner of your mind, but its dedicated and compassionate architect. Your journey from doubt to self-mastery is not about silencing the inner critic forever. It is about changing your relationship with its voice. We began with the recognition that you are not your thoughts, but the awareness that hears them. The path forward was built on a single, liberating distinction, the ancient Stoic dichotomy of control. By separating what is yours to command from what is not, you pulled the primary fuel from your anxieties. You learned to stand on the riverbank of your mind through cognitive distancing, watching critical thoughts float by without being swept away in their current. And you discovered that every obstacle, every perceived failure, is not a blockade but the very material for building resilience, a principle captured in the powerful words, "The obstacle is the way." Self-mastery, in the Stoic sense, is not a final state of perfection where doubt never arises. It is the skilled art of managing those impressions with reason and virtue. It is the daily practice of being the gatekeeper of your own mind, choosing which thoughts to admit and which to question at the door. This is a lifelong endeavor, a continuous training of your character, not a quick fix. The peace you seek does not come from a life without challenge, but from the unshakable confidence that you can meet any challenge with composure. Marcus Aurelius offered a quiet promise for those who walk this path, writing, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. That strength is your birthright, built one conscious choice at a time. If this blueprint for inner peace has resonated with you, consider subscribing for more guides to practical philosophy. And we would be honored to hear from you in the comments. What is one Stoic practice you will take with you today to begin quieting your own inner critic? Your journey continues, one virtuous step at